Hi, this is Laura Holyoke, and I have a finally recording for you over the political lens. My apologies for taking so long. I updated this PowerPoint, and I got busy updating it and not getting it recorded. So we'll take a run through. The political lens talks a lot about power, and power is defined as the capacity a person has to influence the behavior of another person. Influence it can be a very big word when we're talking about power. And the general response to power is usually power, to fight back. And the key to power is dependency. So what gives you more power is when somebody else depends on things that you may have. So it's the importance of the resource to the organization or the person or group. In other words, somebody else has something that you want. Or if you have something that they want. Second is scarcity of the resource. There's a scarcity dependency relationship, meaning the less of something let's take money, right? Money is usually scarce in a lot of places. So if you have the money, usually a lot of people want more money, and there tends to be a relationship between the two. And then non-substitutability of the resource. So if there are fewer viable options to substitute for whatever it is that creates the dependency, the more power a person or group has. Bowman and Deal talk about interests, power, and conflict, and really how they make up the political lens. So organizational politics can be analyzed in a systematic way by focusing on relations between these three: the interests, the conflict, and power. So interest, we all have three areas of interest, and one of those are our extramural interests. That is life outside of the organization. This is what we do, our private attitudes, what we choose, how we spend time with our family, our hobbies, preferences, and what we believe in has nothing to do with work. And then we have career interests, and this is usually in the organizations. This is human resource development. These are our aspirations and visions as to what the future may hold. Long-term, having a job, and we have future goals. Maybe that we want to get more education, or that we want to move up on the career ladder. And then finally, we have task and job interests. So these are connected with work as well. And I need to have resources to do this, so I can act in certain ways. So three different kinds of interests that anybody, if you look around and are working with, has these. Personal interests, however, do not take your team's interest in mind, and this is your team that you're working with at work. So you can really understand politics if you can look at what people have as in their best interest. So in a way, I try to think of this as looking at not at the individual, but looking at the individual's best interest, trying to separate those two. Because people will go for what they believe is in their best interest, whether it be extramural or within an organization. So let's contrast for a minute the political lens to the structural lens. So organizations are integrated, rational enterprises pursuing a common goal. That's a structural lens. The political metaphor views organizations as loose networks of people with divergent interests who gather together for the sake of expediency. That is to make a living, develop a career, or pursue a desired goal or objective. So this is stated by Gareth Morgan, and we will be talking about Morgan quite a bit in, I think, the next PowerPoint that I have for you. So to understand conflict, it arises when our interests collide. It could be personal, it could be interpersonal, or between rival groups or coalitions in an organization. Conflict may be built into organizational structures that just the way they're set up, it may cause conflict. Could also be the roles that people have, attitudes. If you want to look at the HR lens, and stereotypes. These can arise over also a scarcity of resources. And conflict may be overt, that is stated in the open, or it may be covert, where it's not talked about or seen. So some responses to conflict. We can work to prevent them. That this is kind of before they even start to happen. If you start to see something that's further down the line and you want to prevent it, we can avoid conflict. We can work for a resolution, or we can manage conflict. And then across the center of your screen, you can see a continuum of ways to respond to conflict. On one end, very passive is avoiding, and then accommodating. In the middle is compromising. And then more assertive can be collaborating, which is usually good, and competing is quite aggressive. We also can talk about responses to power. So when power is used on us, if you will, we can choose to avoid it, and we can avoid it by stalling, not getting back to people. We can, if we have some sort of legitimate power, we could send it to committee. We could stretch the timeline of the process. We could blame others or blame circumstances. Another response to power is to build coalitions of people that have like-minded interests. And you can use any base of power to both build coalitions as well as respond to the power as a coalition. And then co-optation. This is when we get other people to, we co-opt them to come over to our side. And this is done, flattery. Other people, it could be conforming. So conforming in a culture and in some organizational cultures may be very highly valued. Co-optation may also mean that others that are joining in are just being humble. It could include acclamation, that is awards, grants, or recognitions. You know, if we give out these awards, if you come join us on this, and you will get recognition. Could be negotiating that happens in this case. That could be a covert quid pro quo. You do this and I'll do that, but it's never stated. Degradation ceremonies are also a form of co-optation, and this is degradation ceremonies tend to strip people of their former, what they currently know about themselves or how they identify themselves. So usually in the armed forces, one way of degradation ceremony is to take away, you get shaved, your head shaved, or a really short haircut, and you are given different clothes to wear. So you've left any of your kind of former self behind. And then also focusing on the rightness of one's position is another response to power. Other possible sources of power, and we're going to talk about these again in the next PowerPoint, but it could be reasonable argument, which is oftentimes pulls from expert power, from French and Raven, friendliness, which pulls from referent power, assertiveness, which could be legitimate or coercive power. Another response to the use of power. So this is, if you will, another kind of continuum, if you will. And a lot of people, I think, this is a pretty general ways to respond to power. And so on one end, you can see just compliance, that we're going to follow the directions of the person with the power, regardless of how much we really agree with that person's directions. And in the middle is kind of resistance, so deliberately disobeying orders or delaying carrying out orders. So kind of, I'm not really going to go there. And then there's commitment, and that's really adopting the leader's viewpoint and carrying out the instructions as stated. So I want to do a really quick review of the bases of power, because these are often used not only in the human resource trifocal lens, but they are also used in the political lens. So power, they say these are their 5 classic bases of power. And referent power is power that that you have over somebody because you may be charismatic, have a nice personality, people are drawn to you because they like you. Expert power is having knowledge about something that no other people do and how to work something maybe. Legitimate power, I just jumped over the other side, I know, is also authoritative power. Legitimacy in supervisors have legitimacy power, and then teachers have legitimate power. Reward power is the act of is the ability to do just that, give some sort of rewards for compliance in return. It could be paying people, it could be giving candy, it could be, giving the person time off or something like that. And then there's coercive power, and coercive power is power that's used in not a nice way. Sometimes it can be physical, sometimes it can definitely be non-physical. It could be a look, it could be just holding, telling somebody that you're going to do something to them if they don't go along with what you think. Then I have 3 slides. These are like power tactics and influence tactics. So power tactics are basically strategies individuals use to translate power bases into specific actions. The dimensions usually include one of the ones on the right: reason, friendliness, coalition, bargaining, assertiveness, higher authority, and sanction. Then I looked up, AOLL and Tracy have 9 influence tactics. So a lot of these start to sound like repeating from what I've said in the previous slides, but I think you may also find in these more, I can't think of that, more kind of more descriptive ways that power and influence tactics may be used in The Devil Wears Prada, or that you may see hypothetically in your own workplace. And then power inside of organizations. There is, so AOLL and FALB cover these, and they just really cover position power and personal power. Although I think personal power should also include coercive power. So just, again, to pull from, to look at, to see if any of these fit around you or what you're watching. Finally, people can have hidden agendas, hypothetically, and hidden agendas are usually when people cover up their interests and don't really tell others what they're about. So this sums up what I have for this PowerPoint, and I have one more that should be much shorter. Thank you.